Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles show. Big day. We got Quacketology rolling on as we try to identify the free agent to be who is most likely to sign with the Eagles. We're going to talk about some news around the NFL. Some potential Eagles targets have been released. We will double check back on the Avante Maddox release by the Eagles yesterday. But first, I got to introduce everybody's favorite modern man, Zach Berman. Zach, how are you?
I'm doing great. Excited for the show. This is my favorite type of show. It's like a good crab cake, no filler, all meat. So we'll get right into it.
I didn't even mention Brandon Graham, did I?
You did.
Did I mention him in the beginning? We're going to have Brandon Graham on the show coming up in a little bit. So very exciting to talk to Brandon Graham, get his perspective on what he plans to do, maybe some stories of Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox, this venture that he's working on, maybe some Vic Fangio thoughts. Lots to talk to Brandon Graham about. Zach, how are you?
I'm doing great. Excited for the show.
We have to update the people because I have been neglectful in keeping everybody updated. What's the latest on the basketball front?
We won on Monday. Big win for us. Played really well. Peaking at the right time. Have a semifinal game next Monday.
Oh baby!
So let's keep the train rolling.
Love it.
Yeah.
Just like the UConn Huskies, who took out Boston College in overtime last night. Big
Women's
W.
hockey. What? Yeah. I'm saying we need to clarify what we're talking about.
You don't need to clarify.
We were talking about basketball. You brought up the UConn Huskies. I think the jump in assumption would be basketball. And I want to make clear it's the terrific women's hockey team there.
Maybe not so modern a man as you think you are.
Okay. Let's get right to it. What's the big news today?
Okay, tell me
What's
about
the hard angle?
Well, you know what? Before we get to Justin Simmons
Yes.
and maybe the Saquon Barkley report, let's close up Avante Maddox. You and I did a little emergency show yesterday, 10 minutes, a quickie as it were, on the ramifications of that. But as you slept on it, anything else to add to the Eagles moving on from Avante Maddox, if indeed they are permanently moving on?
No, I think we hit the big topics there. What we're waiting to find out is whether it's a post-June 1st designation. That would affect the cap space distribution. Jason Fitzgerald from overthecap.com thinks this could be a June 1st, thinks he's a good candidate for it. So that would make a lot of sense. Then obviously what the Eagles do to replace him, and we're not ruling out Maddox coming back. But again, I think it would be on the Eagles' terms more so than Maddox's terms.
Okay, and any other thoughts on like backfilling, how necessary it is for the Eagles to like find somebody right away?
Well, to find someone is a major necessity. They were inadequately prepared for that position last year. That is a starting spot. I don't think you can go into it saying, well, we're just going to look at the internal options. I think that it doesn't need to be like a day one free agency ad. And they can wait until after the draft because I think they're going to have some good options in the draft. But I don't think this is like safety last year, for instance, or linebacker last year, rather, where they go into training camp and you're like, well, let's see the guys that we have. Let's see Isaiah Rodgers and let's see Eli Ricks, and you go on down the list. No, this is a position where you need to know going into training camp, here are two viable options to be part of the starting 11.
I don't view it as they need to do that, especially heading into the draft. I think once the draft is over, then maybe you can revisit. But I think it's okay to have Eli Ricks and Isaiah Rodgers and Sidney Brown. I actually think of as less likely there. And whoever else they sign, I think that's okay.
I think going into the draft, yes, but I don't think going into camp. I think if they don't draft someone, then they need to sign someone or trade for someone after the draft.
Now, Justin Simmons, the other big news from this morning, released by the Denver Broncos. Simmons has been one of the better safeties in the league, but he turns 31 in November. We know that he has history with Vic Fangio. Do you think that he will be very high on the Eagles' priority list?
Really good player. Someone we discussed at the trade deadline last year before the buyer trade as someone who would have been a sensible target. Long liked Justin Simmons. I think, and I've been pretty consistent with it, I would rather sign a core player, someone in his mid-20s, similar to the Malcolm Jenkins, Rodney McLeod signing at that position, who you can hope would be a starter for the next 2 to 3, potentially more years for the Eagles. Now, what complicates that is if you are bullish on Sidney Brown's recovery and bullish on Sidney Brown's upside as a safety, and you think Reed Blankenship's going to be a key piece here, and you're saying we just need the Band-Aid solution because Blankenship and Brown is the direction that they would go, then you can talk me into it. But I would be more of the inclination in terms of what I would do and what I expect Howie Roseman to do is sign one of these guys we talked about yesterday in the Quacketology.
We'll get Justin Simmons in the mix as we move on tomorrow. We'll insert him into a 3-way. If that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into it. A quick refresher on how things went yesterday, and a great graphic from Chris here at PHLY as you take a look at how things went in the first round for the DBs. Look at those headshots. Nicely done. L'Jarius Sneed, Xavier McKinney, Eddie Jackson, Jordan Fuller, Geno Stone, Alohi Gilman, Christian Fulton, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson have advanced. And with the linebackers, Tyrell Dodson, Kenneth Murray, Jordan Brooks, Josie Jewell, Devin White, Drew Tranquil, Jerome Baker, and Jeremy Chin. We move on now to the offensive and defensive linemen, Zach. Let's start at the top. Brian Burns, probably the best player available in free agency, as long as you're not a Kirk Cousins guy, but has been tagged by the Carolina Panthers, 26 years old, very good pass rusher, or old Eagles nemesis, the man who some people blame for the downfall of Carson Wentz, Jadeveon Clowney, who has been a one-year contract mercenary for some time, will be 31 years old in September, and coming off a very good season with the Baltimore Ravens at 9.5 sacks, and is also very much better against the run than most of these like one-trick pony pass rushers, but he's a little bit older.
Yeah, so of these two, I would say Brian Burns, even though that's unlikely in the sense that you have to trade for him and then you have to sign him to a big deal. I don't think they're going to add Clowney. I've long been a Clowney fan. A quick
of course you have.
15, 30-second Clowney story. This was in the, I think, 2014 draft, speaking to a high-ranking member of the Eagles organization, and he's like, who do you like in this draft? And I was like, man, Clowney is as special a player as I've seen in a long time. And I remember telling my brother about this, and my brother's like, you dumb beep, like, here you're talking to someone who is making conversation with you, like, wants to know your opinion, and what you're saying is you're like the guy who's gonna be the number one pick in the draft. Like, come on, have a bold take. This guy probably left thinking, is this guy doing any work on football? Like, he's just naming the number one guy.
But Zach, that's what you always do. That's what you still do to this day.
Is what the saying. I like the number one pick.
You like the guys who were like the top 10 picks.
Well, there's a reason.
That's all you ever do.
It's not all I ever do, but there's a reason why they were top 10 picks. But that's a funny Clowney aside. But anyways, Brian Burns, who I've gone on record saying this. If you trade Hassan Reddick, I would call up Dan Morgan, Delco's own Dan Morgan. Shout out to Dan Morgan and to Delco. And I would say, I got Julia laughing. I would say I will trade you number 22 for Brian Burns if we can agree on a contract with Brian Burns. And I would make Brian Burns one of the highest paid players I should say one of the highest paid non-quarterbacks in the league, because I would view it in the same vein as trading for A.J. Brown or trading for Jason Peters.
Interesting. I just don't think that they're going to be able to trade for Brian Burns. Like,
you don't think Carolina's moving him?
I mean, maybe they are.
Yeah.
But like, they haven't moved him for a much bigger price in the past. Now they've got a new general manager now. But I think the Clowney thing is more likely just if they trade Reddick and they're backfilling. That seems more likely to me. But
all right. So
I'm not. I don't feel super strongly about it. If you wanna.
I'm not going to pound the table on this. Because you know what, we should go Clowney for the purpose of there's more obstacles in the way of getting Burns. You have to trade for him, and then you have to make him one of the highest paid players in the league. Right. It's much easier, like you said, to sign Clowney as kind of your stopgap while Nolan Smith develops. So for the sake of this conversation, let's go with Clowney. But I guess I'm saying what I would do if I were Howie.
Okay. All right, we'll do Clowney then. In that case, we move on to the next matchup. Raekwon Davis, who was a run-stuffing defensive tackle, 27 in September, played very well for Vic Fangio last year, was like a first and second down player. Now, the Eagles already have a lot of those guys, and Howie Roseman has said that they don't really necessarily need to bring in more young players at that position. But if you're looking about filling out that room, let's say Fletcher Cox retires, you need one more guy, or a similar type player to Jadeveon Clowney in terms of him being a pass rushing mercenary at this stage of his career, Zadarius Smith, who was coming off a pretty productive season on a very good Browns defense.
Yeah, between these two, I'm definitely going with Zadarius Smith. I like Raekwon Davis coming out of Alabama, as you can probably imagine. Look, if the Eagles are going to have that big early down defensive lineman from the SEC with the last name Davis, let it be Jordan Davis. This is Jordan Davis's role for the Eagles. Zadarius Smith makes a lot of sense for the Eagles if they trade Reddick and they say, we really like Smith, but let's just get someone here who we know can get to the quarterback while Smith develops, then that would make sense for sure to go with a Zadarius Smith type.
I agree with you. Yeah, the Raekwon Davis thing, I think he is too good of a player to get what the Eagles would be willing to pay for that price. So,
yes.
All right, we move on now. Our first offense-defense matchup here. Very exciting. Jonathan Grenard, who is a up-and-coming pass rusher with the Houston Texans, had a very good season last year, and will be 27 this season. Good arm length, can play the run well as well. He goes up against son of a former Eagle. If you're doing the Jeremiah Trotter Jr. wish casting, well, why not just go out and sign John Runyon Jr., who has started basically for the last 3 years for the Green Bay Packers, can play a few different positions. Where do you fall on this one?
Yeah, John Runyon Jr. Now, you view offensive line as more of a need, like finding someone who can start more than I do. But if you are of that opinion, John Runyon Jr., someone, obviously, John Runyon's son, local, but also he trains with Lane Johnson, has a relationship with a lot of guys on this team. Don't know what that price would be. Has a little bit of versatility along the line there, but can definitely help you at right guard. And then Jonathan Grenard, I think, is going to make a lot of money. He's someone who's getting a lot of attention. I would watch out for Arizona. And actually, Grenard's interesting too, because depending on where he signs, it could affect the Hassan Reddick market. So if the Eagles do trade Hassan Reddick, I mean, if a team signs Grenard, it probably takes them out of the Reddick market. If they miss on Grenard, it puts them in the Reddick market. So I would watch out for that. But I don't think the Eagles are – if the Eagles are going to pay Grenard, you might as well just keep Reddick.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay.
I mean, he's 4 years younger.
True. I don't think he's as good a player, but okay.
But it's also, would you rather pay Grenard about the same and get a second-round pick and get younger at the position? I would rather have Hassan Reddick this year.
Yeah.
But if the relationship with Hassan Reddick has soured and you're able to get equal value for him, and then you're able to sign a good player who is younger, Grenard to me is a little bit, he's above this because of the position he plays, but it's a similar profile to Javon Hargrave when they signed him.
Okay.
Right? Like this is a second contract player who you can convince yourself is going to be even better at an important position. Whereas with Runyon, I feel like he'll get a job where he can definitely be the starter. And I think the Eagles would be looking for somebody who can start, but doesn't necessarily have to start. And maybe they don't even want to start.
Valid points. My pushback, and it sounds like I'm going to be anti-Grenard. That's not the case. He's coming off a career year because of the edge rushers who were tagged. He's the top available edge rusher. I don't know if he's an A player, but he's going to make A money. One thing I don't like to do in free agency is to pay B players A money. And I'm okay paying A players A money. Like, that's how I view Brian Burns. If Josh Allen were available, like that's how I would view that. But I don't know if I view Grenard in that vein. So I think you're paying a lot for a guy who I don't know is a premium edge rusher. Reasonable minds can disagree, but that's not the route I would go in free agency.
Yeah, I don't. I think your point is right that like you don't want to pay him like an A player. I think he can. I think you can convince yourself that he's a B plus
Okay.
player, and the position makes it more valuable. I just think from the Eagles' perspective, that seems a little bit more likely to me than Runyon.
Well, then look, you don't have to talk me into getting edge rushing juice. So, I mean, I'm a big edge rushing guy.
I feel like I'm bullying you out of each of our head to heads here.
No, I'm good with with any time you can get somebody who can get to the quarterback. But
this is not what we would do. This is what we think the Eagles.
Yeah, but it's something that I know how he would. Now they also value the lines of scrimmage. It depends what you think of Runyon. I said at the start of it, and for full disclosure, I have a 15-point offseason plan for the Eagles coming out tomorrow. And one thing I say is that turn that position over to Tyler Steen. And now you and I disagree on that, and I do think you need veteran backup, but I'm not spending a lot of money on that spot. So I am look, if the evaluation of Grenard is that in this second contract he's going to be, one of the best edge rushers in the league, then I'm totally on board with paying him that.
Okay. Next up, two edge rushers, Josh Uche, both of these guys from the AFC East. Josh Uche, a rotational player with the Patriots who has had a couple good seasons in the past, 11.5 sacks last season, but came down to earth this year and had never really earned a full-time role with the Patriots. He goes up against A.J. Epinesa from the Buffalo Bills, former second-round pick, and another player who has been a rotational player but has gotten like gradually a little bit better over the course of his career and probably a little bit more well-rounded of a player than Uche.
And a former shadow draft guy for you.
A former shadow draft. They pick instead of Jalen Hurts, which would not have been good.
So I'm going to pound the table here. I like Josh Uche. I think that, look, he's proven he can get to the...
You're pounding this from you or from what you think the Eagles would do?
What I think the Eagles would do, too.
Okay.
If you lose Hassan Reddick, or if you're looking for edge rushing juice...
And I think we should say, like, all of these edge rushers are, in theory, in play only because they might trade Hassan Reddick.
Yes.
Right? Like, if they keep Hassan Reddick, they're not signing any of these guys.
Yeah. 11.5 sacks, like you said, as they've never played more than 33% of his team snaps. You had that in your top 100 for the Eagles. That's a good stat to know. Actually, when you look at some of like the comps in free agency, which Pro Football Focus does, they compare it to Hassan Reddick when Hassan Reddick was a free agent with Carolina. Now, look, he's not coming off a double-digit sack season. He had a down year. He's kind of known as a one-trick pony, for lack of a better term, but he's shown that he can get to the quarterback. Now, Bill Belichick's an outstanding coach. If Bill Belichick feels like you should only play 33% of the snaps, there's probably a legitimate reason for that. But of these two, I view AJ's skill set as something that's harder or something that's easier to find rather than Josh Uche's skill set. If the Eagles are going to pay in free agency for an edge rusher, if you lose Reddick, I think you need someone can get to the quarterback. I think what AJ gives you is probably a comparable thing to what Milton Williams gives you in this defense.
Interesting.
And so that's why of these two, I would certainly lean more toward Josh Uche.
I'm okay to go with Uche here.
Okay.
My only big picture thing is if they do trade Reddick, I am curious to see if they view Nolan Smith as just replacing that body type.
Yeah.
That's his role, and then they need another bigger end who can play on first and second down like an Epinesa, or if they are trying to add another pass rush only guy like an Uche. I don't know which way they would go. Certainly they're historically more willing to pay for the pass rush guy, so I'm okay going Uche here.
Yeah, Epinesa would make sense for me, by the way, if they traded Milton Williams. If they didn't think
they'd trade Josh Sweat.
Or that as well. So he's more of that type of body type, where Uche is more of the Hassan Reddick body type.
Okay. Moving on now. Bryce Huff from the New York Jets, who had a breakout season volume-wise in 2023, first discovered at the Shrine game by Wulf, and he goes up against Javon Kinlaw, the defensive tackle from the San Francisco 49ers, who I am guessing Zach liked a lot.
So this is the upset of the bracket in the first round for me, because I'm going with the undrafted guy over the first round guy. And yes, you are correct. I did like Javon Kinlaw coming out of South Carolina. I will be guilty as charged there. A man who has a type. What can I say? Look, Bryce Huff, I would actually think Bryce Huff makes more sense to them than Grenard. I don't know if he's going to get Grenard's money. He's shown that he can get to the quarterback. It's kind of confounding that the Jets didn't use him as much as they should have, like on a per snap basis. And you outlined this well,
right? Like the sack totals were a huge jump, but like the per snap production on hitting the quarterback, that was not a big jump for him.
Yeah. Look, he turns 26 in April. This would make a lot of sense. This is kind of like part of it's the I guess the Memphis background. It's like what Jannard Avery never was for them, right? And Bryce Huff, there's a lot to like there. He's someone who, I follow a lot of the Jets reporters. They've been talking about him ever since he got to camp there with the Jets. And so
I remember him in those joint practices. I believe it was Andre Dillard. He was like just killing.
Yes,
Andre
exactly.
Dillard. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is one I was surprised that he wasn't tagged just because of that pass rushing juice. Now the tag's a lot of money there. And maybe he doesn't get that. But if they trade Reddick and they're spending at this position, like I don't think Josh Uche is going to get a lot of money relative to Huff, but I think Huff would make more sense for them than Grenard.
And I made the comparison in the write-up. I think there is a little bit of connectivity between the Hassan Reddick free agency and the Bryce Huff free agency, where it's like teams might be outsmarting themselves a little bit. Like this guy has been super productive on a per snap basis. Yeah. Now he proved it for the first time in a larger role this year, but you're like, oh, he's a little too small. This doesn't feel sustainable, but maybe this is just who he is. And if that is who he is, then you're getting a premium position player in the middle of his prime for a little bit under what he should be going for.
Well said. I'm not an evaluator, but I play one on the PHLY show. A few weeks ago, actually when you were at the Senior Bowl, when I was looking at some of the free agent guys, and I'm looking at Huff, the name that jumped out to me, like the comp that jumped out to me, was Trent Cole. It reminded me a little bit of Trent Cole when Trent Cole was
he actually reminds me a little of BG, except not
I like that.
He's not as good against the run.
Sure.
But just like sort of the body type and the way that he does rush the passer.
That'd be good too.
Yeah, I agree. I go Bryce Huff here too. All right, before we move on, Zach, let's talk about some of our sponsors. And you see my Miller Lite cup here, which is fantastic. And if you're just creating a fake bracket with your friends just to pass the time, what's better than sucking down a couple cold Miller Lights? Because a lot has changed over the years. What is the line I said the other day? Sucking them back with the boys. Thank you, Julia.
Modern man right there.
A lot has changed over the years, but one thing that hasn't is the great taste of Miller Lite. It was the original light beer, and to this day, it is still the best one. Miller Lite has more of the taste you want and less of the stuff you don't. It's got that great taste of Miller Lite. Actually, I was listening to the Jason Kelce New Heights podcast, which they just launched, as you tuned me into. He's dropping a couple Miller Lite references. So there's somebody who likes to suck them back too. Miller Lite keeps it simple. Undebatable quality, great taste, and only 96 calories. It's the beer that strips away everything you don't need and holds on to what matters most. A light beer that tastes like beer. What a surprise. Less filling and only 96 calories. The original light beer since 1975. Times change, but you can always enjoy the great taste of Miller Lite. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLY or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories per 12 ounces.
No, I'm going to the Nate Bargatze concert tonight. Looking forward to that.
Big flex.
I have tickets, but if I did not have tickets, you know what I'd be doing right now? I'd be looking at Game Time to see if I can get tickets. Because buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful, and Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all these sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. They have flash deals on last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, including comedy. And they have image of seat views and the lowest price guarantee with event cancellation protection and job loss protection. Forget planning months in advance, which I actually did here, but Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with the Game Time guarantee, it means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
All right. Now a matchup of former Fangio Dolphins defensive players. The Gink himself, Andrew Van Ginkel, who also had a nice productive breakout season. A guy who has also, like Bryce Huff, been a per-snap efficient quarterback hitter over the past couple of years. He goes up against ya boy, Zach Christian Wilkins at defensive tackle. Where do you land on this bad boy?
Yeah, so this is a hard one here. I would say the more likely for them is Van Ginkel.
I agree.
If it was me, it'd be Christian Wilkins.
Of course.
But Van Ginkel, yeah, okay. You can talk me into it. I wouldn't give it the highest grade. A 29-year-old who, you're not looking at prolific sack numbers, and
Sure.
It's more of like
Never had more than 6 sacks in the season.
Yeah,
he hits the quarterback a lot.
Exactly.
The nugget I have in the top 100 is he is one of 7 players in the league with at least 600 pass rush snaps over the past 4 seasons who has hit the quarterback on at least 6% of those rushes, joining TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, Matt Judon, Trey Hendrickson, and Joey Bosa. That's pretty good company, but he is also 29 years old and has never been, he's not an every down player.
Yeah, and you're probably, unless you're paying him for not being an every down player, I would I think Christian Wilkins is closer to an A player, like a B plus, A minus type. That's a guy I would pay big money to, but I don't think they do that. So in the spirit of the game, which we're identifying the guy that they're going to sign or most likely to sign, Van Ginkel gets this.
All right, congratulations to the Gink man himself.
Adam Mexploit says, are we getting BG on the show? Yes, we are. That's coming later in the show. We're working around Brandon's schedule with that. So
12:45 approximately.
Yeah, a little tease, as we call it in this business.
I don't know if just directly saying when he's coming on is that much of a tease, but
well, I
think it's more like later on the show we're going to hear from one of the best Eagles of all time. Tune in, stay tuned. I don't know. It's a little more.
What was that?
I don't know.
Is that like your radio voice?
Yeah,
is that your radio voice? Okay, that's your Wolf. That's your ZB and the Wolf voice, right?
No, that's a little bit more aggro.
Oh, okay. What's aggro mean?
Like aggressive. Like,
okay. Sorry. Was I supposed to know
antagonistic.
that? Gotcha.
Well, I don't know. I mean, do you deal with words for a living?
Wow. I would say that was an aggro comment. Okay. Did I use that correctly?
Not quite, but that's okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's talk about a couple NFC East depth pass rushers here. James Smith-Williams from the Washington Commanders, who is a 27-year-old this season, 6'4", 265. And another guy who was like a depth piece in 2022. He had 3 sacks, and in 2023 he had just 1 sack. But as a guy who hits the quarterback a little bit. Or Dorrance Armstrong from the Dallas Cowboys, a better player than James Smith-Williams, and much more productive, much more efficient, a little bit younger, 27 years old. A better player, but are they going to be able to pay for that level of player, or are they going to have to go for like a depth guy?
Yeah, so I'm operating under the presumption that if you're signing an edge rusher here, it's presumably with the idea that Reddick's not here, and then so I'd go with the better one, and that's Dorrance Armstrong. I think that assuming the Eagles re-sign Brandon Graham as like your fourth guy, and you have Nolan Smith as your third guy, I don't see you can draft someone to be your fifth guy, but I don't see why you'd sign either of these guys if Reddick's back. So I'm going with the one more likely to sign if Reddick's not here, and that would be Dorrance Armstrong, who, as you pointed out in your piece, 21 sacks in 3 years, has been a productive third banana, I think was the term you used. And maybe he views the chance to get a bigger role here with the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't think that James Smith-Williams is really all that different from Julian Okwara, who they signed and gave $1 million to, and it already is here. So yeah, I would agree. If they're going to add one of these guys, it's going to be because they need to, and it'll be Armstrong. Okay, last one in the first round here for the Big Uglies, an offensive line matchup. Ya boy, Halapoulivaati Vaitai, who is certainly older, but we love bringing back an old friend. He's going to be 31 this season, has been injured over the past couple of years, but can still play 4 positions for you. Or Nick Harris from the Cleveland Browns, who is the opposite, can only play 1 position, but it is center, and he's got some athleticism to him.
Well, Halapoulivaati has a big role in PHLY. He's literally in every show we've ever had.
That's true.
Here on PHLY.
Bizarrely so.
Yeah, he is part of the intro.
He more than you, like he has been on more shows than either you or me.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes, for all the sports, Halapoulivaati. Yeah. So we appreciate,
what an upset.
Yeah, we appreciate you here in Philly, Halapoulivaati, but I'm going with Nick Harris here because if you say the Eagles need a backup center, or you want someone who can definitely play center, that's what Harris gives you. He might not give you the 3-position flexibility that they like for the backup, but also you're moving Cam Jurgens over. You need to know you have someone who can be your backup center. So that's why I'm going with Nick Harris. I don't feel very strongly about this. I answered it just because I do think they're going to need to look out for a backup center this offseason. But if you say, look, Jeff Stoutland has always had a soft spot for Halapoulivaati. You want a Super Bowl with him, guard tackle flexibility. I can be talked into it. I just think Nick Harris makes more sense.
Yeah, I think that I don't know why you would bring back Vaitai instead of just bringing back Opeta or Driscoll.
Exactly.
Right. When those guys are younger and theoretically a little bit more left in the tank.
Also, we want Cleveland to have their money for Michael Dunn. So
we want everybody to have their money for Michael Dunn.
That is true, actually. That's a good answer there. Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, so we'll give it to Nick Harris, and that'll close out the book on the first round for the offensive and defensive linemen. Jadeveon Clowney takes on Zadarius Smith in the second round. Jonathan Grenard against Josh Uche. Bryce Huff against Andrew Van Ginkel. And Dorrance Armstrong against Nick Harris. We move now to the skill position guys. And at some point here, in the middle of this round, we may be interrupted by one of the great Eagles of all time. We'll find out who it is within 10 minutes. All right, Zach, let's start with a couple backup quarterback options. Jacoby Brissett, Nick Sirianni's boy, or Drew Lock, the man who ended the Eagles' season. Careened it off a ledge.
Yeah, it's a good point. I actually didn't think of that. Again, we're doing what the Eagles would do, not necessarily what I would do. I would turn this over to Tanner McKee as the number 2. But if they're signing a backup, I think Jacoby Brissett makes more sense for the Eagles. Knows or close with Sirianni.
Eyes, ears.
Can be. No, I was going to say knows Sirianni's system, but I stopped there because we don't know what the system's going to be.
Sure.
Right? Kevin Patullo has a lot of connections in that building. Presumably can be a good influence on Jalen Hurts in the sense that he's long been respected in this league as like one of the real good guys. Not to say Drew Lock isn't. I don't know if Drew Lock is or isn't there, but that's kind of Jacoby's rep. So I would think if you're going with any of these, it'd be Jacoby.
Yeah, I feel like they're probably not going to pay that much for a quarterback. I feel like they would probably be, like Lock's going to go for less, I would imagine, and they would be more willing to pay a little bit less. But I also agree that like they have this love affair with Brissett. And so if he can't get a job to compete as a starter anywhere.
Yeah.
It would make sense.
Also easier negotiation because he represents himself.
But does that make it easier? That probably makes it harder.
Oh, well, there's one less layer. You can get an answer quicker, I suppose.
I feel like you would get an answer quicker from the agent.
Really?
Yeah.
But
the player can sort of take his time.
But there's a layer. It would be like
there's also like there's all these there's all the repeated, like the agent doesn't have just Jacoby Brissett. You've worked with it, like whereas if you're negotiating directly with the player, you don't have a bank of in like a relationship and all of the past history of those negotiations with the person, so you sort of understand where each other's coming from.
Yeah, but it would be like if we're having a show meeting after this, and you want to know if Joy is available for the show meeting, and you said, Zach, can you find out if Joy is available for the show meeting? And I said, Bo, why don't you just ask Julia herself? She's right there, right?
Well, yeah, but that's all. What I'm saying is that's not exactly that is not a 1-to-1.
Okay, all right, I see your point.
If the question is like, can we get Jacoby to camp on time? Then it would be easier to reach out to him. But in terms of negotiating the contract, I feel like it might be more difficult.
Claire says, ask the Ravens. That's a good reference. Apparently, Lamar Jackson might have been tough to negotiate with. Who knows? Maybe Jacoby's easier too. But it's a good point.
All right, a couple wide receivers now. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, the 27-year-old from the Tennessee Titans, 6'2", 211. One of the interesting things of digging into the true media numbers, much better against zone than against man. But this is not a player with a ton of upside. This is like a sort of your Olamide Zaccheaus level type player who can do some of the dirty work. Or Darnell Mooney from Tulane, who had a big year 2 years ago, but has dropped off production-wise since then. 26 years old, has some speed to him. This is more of the Quez Watkins replacement, although he's a little bit smaller.
In that Quez Watkins draft back in 2020, we dug deep into the wide receivers, and in our superlatives, we had to identify the late round receiver that we liked, and Darnell Mooney was the one for me, actually. So maybe a little bias there, but I think when you're looking, if you're
Don't strain your shoulder trying to pat yourself on the back there.
I won't. I mean, look, I'll say when I miss, and I'll say when I make it.
Okay.
Right? That was a good identification there. That's someone who was grinding the Tulane film.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Green Wave.
Great student union, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've actually been there. My brother went to Tulane, so I've been to that student union. I've been all around that campus. Beautiful campus. Great city, New Orleans. Great food city, actually.
Yeah, that one is actually true. Yeah.
Great food city. Very rich food, though, right? Like you feel it at the end of that trip.
No doubt.
Yeah, a lot of salt.
I think we need to start instead of the good food city, like differentiated food city, right? I think that's like, don't tell me that Phoenix is a good food city. There's great food there, but it's not like food that I can't get anywhere else. Well, maybe that's a little unfair to Phoenix.
Yeah.
Phoenix has some interesting food.
Scottsdale in particular. So yeah.
No. See, Scottsdale is not. Scottsdale is good food you could find anywhere. Whereas like you go to like in Arizona, you can get some good like Native American food that you might not be able to get in other places.
True. But there are specific restaurants in Scottsdale that you can't go anywhere else and have. So I think Scottsdale.
We like restaurants that, but the type of food that they're serving is not necessarily food.
Okay, when I think
prepared
of
that you can't get anywhere else.
When I think of a good food city, I think of the food that I had there was good. Therefore, it's a good food city, right? If I was at 5 restaurants in that city and I enjoyed it, it's a good food city.
That's what I'm saying, though.
It doesn't need to be
every
the most
city
eclectic
you say
cuisine.
It's a good food city. So that's why maybe we should start, instead of saying good food city, since every city is a good food city, let's like, where is a city you can get food you wouldn't get anywhere else?
Yeah, but there are some cities where I've gone there and I've only eaten in the airport, and I would say it's not that. I'm sorry, not the airport, the hotel, and it's like not a particularly good food city, right?
But that's not the city's fault. That's your fault for eating in the hotel.
Yeah, but I'm saying I didn't. I wouldn't.
So your only criteria is, did you have a good meal there?
Absolutely. How else would I say something's good? I can't comment on a meal I did not have. It would be disingenuous for me to say.
So really what this means is good Zach Berman food experience. Like,
yeah,
that's not.
when I say good food city, it means like I've been to that city and I had good food
Oh
there.
my God.
Okay, I can't tell I can't tell you Spokane's a good food city. I've never been to Spokane. Okay, there are people who like swear by certain like I've heard people say that like Albuquerque's a good food city. I couldn't tell you. I would never come on the show and say Albuquerque's a good food city. I would say to you that I've had good food in New Orleans, so therefore it's a good food city.
That is so funny. Well, it's not such a good food city. The meal I had at the Courtyard was not so good. Like that's yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a bad food city. I just wouldn't endorse it as a good food city if I didn't have good food there.
Very, very funny. I feel like this is the more we unpack this.
Yeah.
The better
Anyways,
it gets.
to answer the question, Darnell Mooney, because I think if you're signing a third receiver, you want someone who gives you more juice, and Mooney gives you more juice.
Okay. Unfortunately, my browser has crashed, so I don't have the bracket up at the moment.
Okay.
But that's okay because we are waiting to hear from one of the great Eagles of all time. Coming up in a couple minutes. Let's move on to a couple of running backs then, Zach. Josh Jacobs or A.J. Dillon, a player who you have been pitching as a potential cost-effective signing for the Eagles.
Yeah, I would lean toward A.J. Dillon here as more of the cost-effective type, like you said. Josh Jacobs, who I like coming out of Alabama. That shouldn't be a surprise. But when I look at it, of the high-profile backs, like if you said Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs and Tony Pollard, I would say actually Jacobs is the least likely I would expect to sign. So
I
Dillon
totally agree with you.
makes sense as more of the big physical back for them.
I would have said the exact same thing, that of those higher-end running backs, he is the one that I don't think that they will have a ton of interest in. And so, yeah, I think Dillon makes more sense as a second week guy.
Yep.
If they want to add a big back to the offense, you could sort of see that making sense. All right. Let's go to we want to get to the Saquon Barkley conversation because there is some reporting that the Eagles may have some interest in Saquon Barkley, so we can start this conversation, but know that it may be.
Well, should we skip over this one and go to Henry Dobbins?
Yeah, why not?
Let's do that. So that way, after BG, we'll get to Barkley Pollard, so we can give an appropriate discussion.
Okay, Derrick Henry. Everybody knows about Derrick Henry. Zach liked him a lot coming out. He goes up against J.K. Dobbins, who Zach probably also liked a lot coming out.
J.K. Dobbins is a very Howie type signing.
Yes.
Now there's clearly a health red flag here, so your training staff needs to sign off on it. But man, you look at like the per snap production. He's been awesome. He's still really young. He's someone who I know the Eagles liked coming out of Ohio State. That was in the Jalen Hurts draft. He was someone who he was someone they were looking closely at.
And the reporting from Albert Breer was that if they weren't going to take Hurts, it was Chin or Dobbins.
Yes. So Dobbins would make a lot of sense as like a 1-year show me deal, resets his value, has a chance to get a lot of carries here if he's healthy. So I think Dobbins makes sense.
All right. Well, guess who we have on the line now? Everybody's favorite laughing edge rusher for the Eagles. Brandon Graham, how you doing?
What's up, man? How
What's
y'all
up,
doing?
BG?
Who would have thought y'all two together?
Who would have thought? It's good to see you. What are you doing these days? Tell us what you're here to talk about.
Well, I'm here to talk about the cars that's coming out. We've been working on these cars. Just reimagining the whole Super Bowl. Super Bowl 52, and man, just excited. Just to be one of ones with these cars, man. I'm glad that they hit me up to want to get something done.
And you can buy the cards at spectatorsportsart.com with all the proceeds benefiting Operation Kids Next Door. Tell us about Operation Kids Next Door, BG.
Well, they what I love about them, because I'm a gamer, they use gaming to bring people in so that people have somewhere to go so that they can learn how to earn their money, and they doing it all through gaming and bringing like a safe environment for people to come when they don't have a lot of options. And so I got much respect for that because I definitely relate because gaming definitely saved my life a little bit of just not being out in the neighborhood and that idle time that you have as a kid sometimes because if your mom working or something, you got to be the man of the house. It don't always go well for a lot of people if they got got to choose.
What were the games you were playing back then?
You know what? I was playing Super Mario Brothers. What else we got? I mean, we got a bunch of stuff. I mean, Dreamcast was it for a while until it wasn't until all the Xbox stuff came out. But I feel like that was like my first like really real start was during Dreamcast days.
So obviously you're on a card here. You're a gaming guy. You have those young kids at home. I know you celebrated a birthday this past weekend. What do they get more of a kick out of, you being on a card or you being in the video games?
Hey, well, the kids get it kicked out of just their dad being on, whatever, because they definitely, just enjoy being a part of this whole journey of me playing football. They action already win the games again. They don't know this. They gonna know, baby girl know. This is really my last year coming up, and so I try to make sure I enjoy all that comes with it right now, man, because to see me being able to put a smile on my face. I think the card's definitely gonna be something that they'll hold on to because that's something that's realistic for them to hold.
Well, let's talk about it, BG, because you mentioned it. Maybe, probably your last year coming up. Reports that you guys are trying to get something done. Can we break some news here? How close are we to getting something locked up?
I think things are happening in a positive way. I just know that you got to make sure you take care of your business. First and foremost, before both parties could talk about the plan that they want from you. So I know for me, being here this long, I'm just here to try to help the team, and so I know me and how we gonna get it done, and I got faith in that.
You've been honest about having a farewell tour. I think that's the term you use for us. Is it only in Philadelphia? Like, is Philly the only option for you?
Man, Philly has always been the only option since I got in here. So, it's like I really just feel like, man, I'm so welcoming. I mean, it's been so welcoming after, it didn't start so good. But, winning the Super Bowl definitely changed my mind about this city. And then, stuff happening, the way it did with me sacking Tom Brady. I mean, that helped my cause, but man, it was tough in the beginning. But now, things have been forgiving, and man, it's been so welcoming, and I'm just trying to make sure that that Philly know that I'm gonna ride with them to the end.
What a superpower to be able to just drop that in every sentence any day of your life. When I sacked Tom Brady and we won the Super Bowl because of it. Let me ask you about Jason Kelce. He announced his retirement obviously on Monday. What did you think of the speech? And like, when you think back of over the past decade playing with Jason, what's like your number one memory?
Well, you know what, Kels, man, he was special, man. Just remembering one thing I could say is he don't care what he got on. It don't matter. He gonna have his flips. I mean, he coming to work. And that's one thing I can love because if you by looking at him, you wouldn't think too much. You know what I'm saying? He's hiding in plain sight. And man, when he go out there on that field, man, you see, you already know what you're getting because you've been seen it for so many years, 13 years. And I'm just happy that he's a good dude, and that's really all I care about. With players that come in, like how are you gonna be remembered? You see, just for them boys to be able to be vulnerable with each other, they brothers, being able to cry together, man, and really, it really meant something to them. It really put a lot of stuff in perspective on me, too. It's like, man, love the ones that's around, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable and be happy for them. You know what I'm saying, and to show that in that way because this seeing that, man, them boys they do everything together, and like they said on the podcast, Travis said, it's almost coming to an end, but it was a great movie, what I'm saying, that was being written during them times, and now it's just time to move on and do something else and create something different.
And now, speaking of that, we had Fletcher Cox in the studio every Tuesday this season. He actually said he was going to bring you along, so we're glad that you're finally on the show. But We'll see what Fletcher decides. You know, Kelce's not going to be here next year. What's that locker room going to be like without some of these core guys who you've been with for more than a decade?
Well, I think some of the stuff that the guys that's been here, that's still gonna be here, what they learn from some of the guys that's not gonna be here. Like a Kels in his room. They're gonna try to carry that torch and try to show him or give him something to be proud of when he come back. Because I know when people come back and see me, they didn't know that it was always gonna be like this either, because it didn't start like this. But just to know, like, I shout out Trent Cole and JP. Every time I see them, I know they feel good knowing that I'm still carrying that torch, and know that, original people that was there with me is still there, showing how it's done. Because when I first came in, JP, they did it a certain way. And when it became, part of what I started doing, he knew that, that he can trust me, to get it done. Because, when you go to any team, man, you're going to always root for them, because they took a chance on you. And Philly definitely took a chance on me. And I'm just happy to be able to pay it forward. And I'm sure some new guys going to rise to the occasion. But as of now, this year, it's going to be me, Lane still there, hopefully Fletch. And then, you're going to have Jalen that's really growing into his spot. And you got AJ and you got Avante, who I feel, is going to be good on their side of the ball. But, it's got to be a collective. We all got one goal, and that's to go win the Super Bowl. And so with them seeing us the way we handled our business, I think, some other guys will start to carry the torch that you don't even know about.
Meanwhile, JP is still carrying his torch all around the league. The guy's still
Hey,
playing. It's unbelievable.
yeah, he's still playing.
How much work have you done, or have you talked at all to Vic Fangio now that you've got a new defensive coordinator in? Do you do any studying or preparing for what that would mean for you on your own, or are you just sort of, I'm at this point in my career, I know what I'm doing when I get there?
Well, yeah, I mean, they should know that I'm all in just from what people, probably said about me with them coming in, and who they, figure was going to be here for this year. But I haven't talked to Fangio at all about nothing about this year. I haven't really seen none of the new people yet, except JK, because he just so happened to come in when I was working out. And that's the DB, the safeties coach that was here year before. But yeah, I'm excited. Just to go out there and learn and pick his brain, because we had some good people in the building last year too, man. Not to, last year was not a wash. It was more to be learned in situations like that, when you got great players and, things didn't happen the way that you needed it to. I felt like it was good for us to go through that as a team, because everybody felt that pressure of getting back because of what we did the year before. And you got to know, you got to take every year with it's different, because you got a new team, new coaches, all them same coaches wasn't there, and you can definitely feel it a little bit. And we had to learn it all over again.
And so, if and when you do get this done with Howie, what kind of role are you expecting? Do you think it's more of like you're the veteran in the locker room, bringing the young guys along? Are you expecting to have some meaningful snaps in there? Is it going to look like last year? How would you expect it to be?
Well, of course, I'm gonna go out there and show my worth, on if I still got it or not. But I know that for me, I'm coming back to help the guys, to mentor the guys. It's being selfless, going out there, just want to win. And if I ain't playing that much, it's all good. But they know how much I just really just want to see other people win, because I know that feeling of people seeing me go from where I went from and seeing it, and then coming back and still seeing me here. I want to have that same thing, for like guys like Jordan Davis, and of course Jalen Carter's had a good year his first year, but I want him to take that next step, and I want to help him get there, and I want to really, just pick his brain on like what he think being great is, and then let him know where he's headed in the right direction, and maybe not so much on the other stuff. But I just really want to, be that mentor for the guys, to help them, because I know we got a good team, man. It's just all about having that mindset to come with it every day on days that you don't really, want to come.
I've got one last one for you, just sort of looking back, BG. I had the pleasure of getting to spend that one day with Carlene at the game with the family, and that was the Saints game from 2 years ago, and that was the day when Josh Sweat got hurt, right? And so you had to play more snaps than usual. And I thought it was so funny after the game. You were like, man, I am tired, because you had to play so many more snaps. And so, we always hear about athletes like your career goes on, and the later you get in your career, the more you know, the more you understand, but your body is not what it once was, right? And so when in your career did those two things align best? When did you feel like you were at your best with both like knowing what was going on, but also you had everything you needed in your body?
Coming back from that Super Bowl, I felt real good. Like, you know what I'm saying? But this year, a little bit, you started to be like, okay, like I can, like when I did get the extra reps, like you said, it's like if you're not used to it, boy, it's gonna be your body. I've almost forgot what it felt like to play a full game, like you said, where it was like, ooh, man, I got like, cause I was doing good all year,
Right.
where I was, you know, I only played 20 some snaps, almost sometimes 15, but when I had to play the 40 and 50, you know, it was like, yeah, like you start to feel that soreness, and you know you get bruises in other areas that you don't know until you come down from all the medication you done took to feel good for the game, and you know and yeah, man, it's a recovery process that you got to go through for them couple days.
If I can sneak one last one in here, it's that our show today is about free agency. We heard what Jason Kelce said the other day about playing in Philly. If a free agent from a different team calls you up and says, "What's it really like to play for the Eagles?" Give me the straight, honest answer. What's your answer for them?
Well, I'm gonna tell them, man, you better take care of your business, man, when you come in here, because they're gonna call you out on where you know you're not doing good. So get ready for that. It's gonna be up and down every week, depending on how it goes for you. And you know, I just know you better come in with a mindset, you know, that you want to work, because that's all they really want to see, that you care, and that you know, for their team, you riding for their team for the year that you are here, or the years that you are here. Come in just with that mindset and be the best version of you, and man, follow the ones that's been here the longest. You know what I'm saying? And you should be definitely fine as long as you balling.
The name of the card is Breakthrough, the sack heard around the world. Once again, you can buy it on SpecterSportsArt.com with the proceeds benefiting Operation Kids Next Door. All cards are $75, and that includes an exclusive box and encased cards.
Look at that one.
It's right there. Look at how
Kelly
handsome that
Green.
is. Look at the art on that. Poor Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I mean, the only time anybody would ever say poor Tom Brady. And there are 1,552 cards in total, 55 for your number and 52 for the Super Bowl. BG, I hope you know that like the chat is lighting up with all these people saying how much they love you. We've got Julia, our producer here, who has like the biggest smile on her face just seeing your smile. You are, you know, I think a beloved player here in Philadelphia.
No, it's been lovely. And, you know, one thing I will say is, you know, to them other free agents, you got to fight, because it sometimes don't start as good. But as long as you got another chance, you know, like sometimes like every year is different. But you got to stay fighting, because it didn't start off like that for me. And, you know, I just kept fighting. But I had other people around me to help me with that fight. And so that I wouldn't, you know, stop on myself. But, man, you come in fighting, it usually go the other way. And I'm happy it did in my case.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time, BG. Enjoy the next couple of days, and good luck. We hope you get some news on your front soon.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Okay, see you soon.
All right. Well, if you also are in the market for some more merchandise, we can talk about FOCO, because FOCO is a leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, and more. It's the best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. Going to a basketball or hockey game? Show off some love for the team that you love with team-branded friendship bracelets. Whether it is hoodies, jackets, beachwear, or even overalls, there is something for fans for almost every occasion. FOCO has hooked PHLY up and provided awesome pieces for our sets. FOCO always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in our description for all non-presale items. Use the promo code PHLY10 for 10% off.
I was paying my credit card bill the other day and saw
Flex.
a subscription there that, man, I need something. I need this off. And the way to go is Rocket Money, because Rocket Money
is it OnlyFans?
No. Rocket Money's the place to go if you have subscriptions that you forget about, or that you've paid for twice and you didn't realize it. They can cancel the subscription for you, and it's otherwise time consuming. And Rocket Money will alert you to an increase in subscription price, or negotiate it for you. Did you know that nearly 75% of people who have subscriptions that have forgotten about them? And before I started using Rocket Money, I thought I had all these. I thought I didn't have a lot of subscriptions. Then I couldn't believe when I saw how many there were. Thanks to Rocket Money, you're no longer wasting money on the ones that you forget about. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. With Rocket Money, you have full control over your subscriptions and a clear view of your expenses. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. That's rocketmoney.com/PHLY. rocketmoney.com/PHLY.
And let me also tell you about the event that we've got coming up at the Wells Fargo Center for all you Flyers diehards. Join Charlie, Bill, and the other PHLY hockey diehards at Wells Fargo Center on March 14th as the Flyers take on the Toronto Maple Leafs in an Eastern Conference showdown presented by Olipop. Very exciting. Can't wait for that. All right, back to the action. Anything you want to unpack from Brandon Graham there, Zach?
Always good speaking with Brandon.
Yeah, what's not to love?
Yeah, I mean, it's as we've expected. It's going to be the Eagles or nobody else. It's going to be a farewell tour here, and that him and Howie are working on it. I remember him seeing. I remember seeing him last year around this time at the Maxwell Awards. It was out in the Poconos last year, and chatting with him, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna get this done pretty quickly. And sure enough, they got it done pretty quickly. So I imagine that will be the case here as well.
All right, let's wrap up the first round of Quacketology here, Zach. Did we have a winner in Nick Westbrook-Akini versus Darnell Mooney? I think we were just talking about you liking him.
I was going Mooney because I said if they're adding a number 3 receiver, they're going with someone with more juice.
Okay.
And you didn't disagree. Did you?
Okay. No, I'm just trying to keep.
Although
it
depends if they're
here.
seeing more zone or man, I suppose, right?
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Henry Dobbins. We also did not have a resolution there.
No, we said Dobbins is the type of player the Eagles would go after.
Oh,
we both agreed there.
Okay. I thought we didn't. We were in the middle of finishing that when BJ came on.
Yeah, but I said this is a Howie move, and you said totally agree. So
well,
I figured,
but we didn't. I just didn't know if we checked the box or not.
Okay, so
right.
Do you want to check the box?
Sure. J.K. Dobbins is fine. That's great.
All right.
Saquon versus Tony Pollard. Now, this is interesting because Tony Pollard has the Kellen Moore experience.
Yep.
I don't know if you think the aversion to bringing in ex-Cowboys still exists or not.
Yeah, that doesn't do it for me.
But there is some reporting about Saquon Barkley that the Eagles might have some interest. My thought here...
That was from Howard Eskin and from Ryan Dunleavy as well from the New York Post.
Okay. My thought here is usually the Eagles, rumors about the Eagles' interest in specific people before free agency starts don't usually come true. So I'm a little bit hesitant there. However, as we look at the scope of everybody available on defense, Justin Simmons is now there are so many safeties there now. There are enough linebackers that would make a tangible difference for the Eagles. I think you can make a case that the biggest impact on the 2024 Eagles would be to sign if you think Saquon can be prime Saquon, to sign him for whatever that is, $12 million, and then sign middle tier guys at those other positions. And you trust that Vic Fangio alone is bringing up the floor of that defense and can still, even if it's not super talented, get you to 18th in the league. And maybe Saquon helps get you to number 3 in the league on offense. And that's a better recipe for success than chasing the bottom end of the top 10 on defense and still being, top 5 on top 7 on offense.
I hear your point. It's one you've made often, and I don't disagree with the premise of it. I don't think that would be the reason why they would sign Saquon. I think my guess is their evaluation of Saquon would be higher than their would be better than their evaluation of Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard had an electric year with Kellen Moore, so there's that clear Moore connection. I think Pollard's more of you're monitoring his touches, 12 to 14 touch guy. I don't know if he's the guy you're you're trusting at, or you're using as like an 18 to 20 touch guy. And maybe there's not that many 18 to 20 touch guys. My point is, if you're paying a running back, you're paying him, I think, to really be like a lead back, taking a lot, not just 10 to 12 to 14 touches. I could be wrong in that evaluation, but that's my presumption. Saquon Barkley, well, you'd be surprised. I really like coming out of college. You rolled your eyes there. That was a joke.
Okay. That's good.
So only one of us can joke on this show.
Well, it's not a joke if you just say the same thing that you always say.
That's good. You try to humiliate me during ad reads, and then I'm
not trying to humiliate you. There's nothing
joke.
Wrong. There's no kink shaming here.
There's no kink. It was
kink.
It was a music subscription. It was
okay. BobMarley.com.
No, there's certain companies we're not allowed to mention on the ad read. It says specifically, don't mention this. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to respect our sponsor, and you have to turn that into some weird accusation. Okay, no,
it was an accusation.
So that's all it was. Anyways, back to Saquon.
Hypothesis.
Back to Saquon. With Saquon, this is gonna come down to money. I think if Saquon's not getting the contract that he wants, I don't think the Eagles are paying $10+ million for a running back. That would really surprise me. I think if the market's not what Saquon expects it to be, if it's a depressed running back market, all the prices are kind of coming down. Saquon's looking for a situation that would make a lot of sense for him, which I think the Eagles would. I think the Eagles would pay for like a 1-2 year deal at decent money, but I'm thinking more like the $6 to $8 million range, not that $10 to $12 million range. If you're at that number, I don't think the Eagles play. I don't think the Eagles play in those waters.
I could sort of see it. Because he has the explosiveness that they're after, no doubt, and also the volume, right?
And the pass catching,
right? Which they've right. Well, yeah, but I'm saying like they've talked up the pass catching in the past and not made much of it.
But Kellen Moore's here now,
right?
Yeah.
I could sort of see it, and you think you're turning. You've got this like Voltron thing going on offense with Saquon as opposed to just paying for competency elsewhere. And Saquon at his best is a difference-making player, and it would be you could imagine the attraction for him to get out of being in terrible offenses for his entire career to go somewhere where the attention is less like exclusively on him.
Yeah.
It would be a good opportunity for him. I can sort of see it.
Yeah, like to your Saquon point, I'm not saying I could see it at that number. I could see them certainly having interest. To that Saquon point, a good barometer that I always have, and this would make sense, is like when you talk to the players in the locker room about a player on another team. And when Saquon was a rookie, and were you there then, or was that the year? No, was that?
Yeah, I was there.
Okay, I don't know if that was 2016 or was that?
I think he was a rookie in 18.
He was a rookie in 18. Sorry, these numbers all come together. Okay, yeah. I just remember like Malcolm Jenkins and Jim Schwartz. Yeah, obviously he was rookie in 18.
Because we were making fun of positional value as a crock.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, those guys were like, man, this guy's awesome. Like he is a really tough player to defend. And I know there's been some time since then that's elapsed, and there's been some injuries there. But I think there's just a lot of talent that I think the Eagles would pursue.
I think they could talk themselves into this being their opportunity to get a McCaffrey.
Interesting. Maybe so. They love McCaffrey.
Mm. Yeah. I think
so for the
and also the other thing here is like if they commit real money on like a multi-year deal to Saquon Barkley, poor Miles Sanders.
Yeah, he's been chasing Saquon.
Yeah, his entire career. He's like, oh, come on, you gonna go anywhere else?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think that Saquon moves forward over Tony Pollard.
I agree. We disagree on how much they would pay him, but I think we would agree that they'd go Saquon over Pollard.
All right. You mentioned Kellen Moore. Do the Eagles go and bring in his backup quarterback from last year, Easton Stick? Worked with Doug Nussmeier, obviously. Or are they interested in a gadget-type player like Shields boy, Curtis Samuel?
Yeah, Curtis Samuel's coming off a productive year with Washington last year.
But all volume, no,
sure.
like nothing impressive about the per play or per target per snap numbers.
Yeah, giving you a different type of player. Then he's definitely giving you a different type of player than what you have in Devontae and with AJ. I don't think Easton Stick's going to cost you that much. He does have that last year starting experience with Nussmeier and Kellen Moore, but I would kind of lean toward the Eagles adding that joystick type skill player than the backup quarterback in this category. But I don't feel strongly about this one way or the other.
Yeah, I lean towards you too. Okay. I don't like Curtis Samuel that much, but for their like if they're going to keep that wide receiver screen like 75% of the playbook there, then yeah, they might need a player like Curtis Samuel. So
Easton calls you Easton, and you have a little history, right? Didn't you talk to him when he was at North Dakota State?
No, that was Trey Lance.
Okay, I spoke to him when he was at North Dakota State.
Was this just a setup for you to say
no,
that?
No. It wasn't a setup. I thought when you went out to Fargo, you spoke to him. You spoke to Trey Lance. Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't. He had just left.
He had just left. What do you think Easton's call to Carson is if the Eagles express interest?
Hey Carson, it's me, Easton. What the Eagles are interested in me. What would you say about going to Philadelphia?
Thanks for selling that one.
Well, I don't know. What do you want me to say?
No, all right. So Easton calls Carson.
Said, oh yeah, they've got great turkeys to shoot.
Yeah, Carson's like, hey, stay away from that building.
I know. I got a bed I can sell you.
You think he moved that bed with him?
Probably.
Yeah.
You probably had to pay a separate moving company just for the bed.
Yeah, maybe so. So someone says, is Fargo a food city? I actually had a good meal in Fargo. I mean, I wouldn't say it was I had a better meal in Bismarck than in Fargo. In Fargo, I found out.
Are you comparing one meal to one meal?
So quick. Well, I had a few meals, but my funny Fargo story is I went out there the week after the Eagles drafted Carson Wentz, and I found out the specific restaurant that Carson Wentz ate at his last night in Fargo before he was drafted. And I wanted to kind of recreate this meal. So I went to the restaurant and I went to the table and I asked the waitress, what did Carson order?
Julia goes, oh my God.
Yeah. Julia's response was probably what their response was there. I mean,
did they remember?
No, so look, I fancied myself as like a very detailed oriented reporter. Okay. I don't think they were exposed to a lot of like these types of reporters in Fargo who are.
I've never seen a big city reporter before.
No, not saying that. I think they were a little spooked out by me wanting to. I said I went there and I said, I know Carson ate here. What table did he sit at? And they're like, oh, he sat there. Okay. And then, do you remember what he ordered there? And then I actually found out what he did order. That's kind of that's neither here nor there. But then I also
why can't you went through all of this? You can't tell us what he ordered?
I forgot the specific order, but I did find out the order.
How much longer? How further along the line did you take it? Like, do you know where he went next? Do you know?
Well, no.
What
So
he
then
did
I
before he went
also
to bed?
I went to the restaurant where the Eagles went to dinner with him. I believe it's called Mezzaluna, and in downtown Fargo, and where he went there, and I had a picture of what that table was like, and but the restaurant
you had a skin mask made. Like
the restaurant wasn't open the night that I was there.
Okay,
but that's actually when I spoke a week before to someone who was in the restaurant when the Eagles were there, who because there was a picture that was circulated.
I remember that.
So I reached out to the person who took the picture. Really nice guy. He's from Philly, actually. By coincidence, he was there in business. This is all documented, by the way, in Underdogs, the Philadelphia Eagles' emotional road to Super Bowl victory.
Even the conversation with the waitress?
No, that wasn't. But just the.
Okay. What about the reprimand you got after making that trip from his representation?
That was not included in there. But I was honestly, I thought I was like Woodward and Bernstein, and I was probably a little much. I admit that, but look, I mean, you're at the Philadelphia Inquirer. They just draft a franchise quarterback. You want to get all the details you can get.
And how did he have it prepared?
And what?
How did he have it prepared?
Yeah, I was trying to like really capture what Carson Wentz experience in Fargo and in Bismarck was like, and I even stopped along the way in the town where halfway through, I believe he had some family in that town. I probably did a little too much. Probably a little too much, but I was
but I don't know.
proud of
You
it.
never know what's going to happen. I actually don't.
Yeah.
I don't think that's that bad.
Yeah, and
It's
the
just the conversation with the waitress is funny.
Yeah.
I think all of that stuff is that's
Yeah.
partly you're out there. You're looking for
exactly. Thank
something.
you.
You never know what you're going to come across. You going everywhere.
Thank you.
I think
Shout out
that's
to
totally
Dave
fine.
Miletti, the photographer at the Inquirer, who was there with me. We had a great
At the meal
experience.
too.
Oh yes, he could tell you all this. Yeah.
So did he think that was funny?
Yeah, he was laughing. He was laughing. Like my mom's like, we need to go to this restaurant, and we need to sit at this table, and we need to. Yeah, it was like a whole thing. Yeah.
All right, 2 matchups left, Zach. Before we close the book.
Tracer Bowl says this is all documented in police reports. It wouldn't surprise me. Yes. Okay.
All right, another guy that I know you liked coming out, Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yeah.
And he checks the box of not an early draft pick, but a guy who was highly recruited.
Yes.
Coming out of high school. That's why you liked him. I thought he was your guy, not Darnell Mooney.
No, I guess Mooney was my deep threat, and Peoples-Jones was my late round receiver.
Got it. And he goes up against my guy, Noah Brown, who has been very productive on a efficient per snap basis with the Cowboys and the Texans last year. I like Noah Brown here.
Yeah, me too.
Because Peoples-Jones, who got traded for next to nothing to the Lions, didn't really make much of an impact there. Seems to me like there's like something else going on there.
Yeah, good point. And obviously Noah Brown has that background with Kellen Moore from their time in Dallas. Really shined last year when he was in Houston. I like the player profile. I think Brown should get paid, and I think the Eagles should be in the Brown market. Again, I would hold off until the draft for a wide receiver because I think they'll find wide receiver 3, a good one in the draft. But of the players here, Noah Brown jumps out to me. I do like a Noah Brown.
There's also a small advantage just in terms of on the field defenses being confused about which Brown to cover.
I don't think that's something that they have to worry about.
You never know. I mean, if it makes a difference on one play, it's worth it.
Players tend to go by numbers instead of
most of them do, but you never know. It could happen one time.
But you know what? Come to think of it, the Eagles, they have some of the worst numbers in the league.
Yeah, they got to give him a number that looks like AJ's
11.
number.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that way you see.
Unfortunately, the ones do not.
Yeah. The zeros
17
and the
maybe like the 7 and the 1.
The zeros and the 8 are more like if there was a 10, you know, if AJ Brown was 10 and you sign Noah Brown, I would give him 18.
Absolutely.
And you wouldn't be able to tell them apart, right?
That's pretty good.
Brown, the number, yeah.
All right, last one. KJ Osborne, who was the Vikings slot receiver, although his production dipped a little bit this past season, or Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the deep threat from the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, you know he dropped that pass against the Eagles at the end of the game this season, but also made some plays in the playoffs. He is exactly what you think he is, like the deepest average air yards per target in the league over the past couple of years, and like the second lowest catch rate in the league. Like he is Quez Watkins, just a little bit better at it.
Yeah. So I remember when Nick Sirianni was hired and asking around, and I would say, tell me one thing about Nick that like really distinguishes him. And someone said, he's so good at getting guys yards after the catch. Now, I don't know if we've seen that as much, but you have a great number here in your top 100 that KJ Osborne, his most attractive trait comes after the catch, where he ranked 18th among all high volume wide receivers over the past 2 seasons with 4.5 yards after the catch. The Eagles have access to the true media data that you do, and I imagine that could be
better numbers.
That could be maybe an attractive quality of KJ Osborne. So
you go Osborne.
I don't feel strongly about it. I put Osborne because they had a chance for MVS before. MVS does stretch the field, but yeah, I went Osborne here.
I think I would lean MVS.
That's fine with me.
Just because I could see them going for that type, and he fills a specific role. But yeah, I don't feel super strongly about that one either.
Yeah.
Julia, you want to pick this one? KJ.
Good pick, Julia.
KJ Osborne gets him. Congratulations to him and his family. All right. That means that in this quarter of the bracket, Jacoby Brissett will take on Darnell Mooney, A.J. Dillon against Saquon Barkley, J.K. Dobbins against Curtis Samuel, and Noah Brown against KJ Osborne. That means that tomorrow's show, we're going to wrap it all up. We're going to crown a champion in free agent quacketology and maybe put a little more of a spin on the things that we're looking forward to. And also, on Monday, I think we can tell you this is what we're thinking. We go live at noon. The legal tampering period begins at noon. We're going to stay live. We're going to see what's going on. We're going to react to all the reports that are happening. We might go 2 hours. We might go 3 hours. We might go 4 hours. We're just going to be hanging out, watching the start of the year, reacting to it. We invite you to join us. I think that'll be a good time.
It's going to turn into a hostage video for me, I imagine. But
yeah, I think that's part of the appeal.
Yeah, I might say something I regret at the 2.5 hour mark, which got to be careful.
Usually it happens earlier than that.
True.
Happened before the show today.
I didn't think what I said was that bad. I mean, you took umbrage to it, but that's typically how it goes.
All right. So yes, that's our plan for Monday, and then we will also presumably have emergency pods reacting to stuff that happens when we are not live. But next week is the big deal. We're going to find out some big moves the Eagles are making, we expect, and we look forward to that. So thank you to Brandon Graham for taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you to Julia and Zach and all of you for watching and listening and being with us. We will talk to you tomorrow at noon. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.